How exactly do you analyse a character who never appears on stage and has no dialogue in a play? Despite holding a central role in An Inspector Calls, the audience never meets Eva Smith. However, Priestley uses Eva's lack of voice and presence on stage to symbolise the lack of power held by women and the working class in Edwardian England. Priestley's choice of names carries symbolic significance when it comes to the character of Eva Smith and her alias Daisy Renton. Firstly, the name Eva can be seen as an intertextual biblical reference to Eve, the first woman, and the person from whom we are all descended. Combined with the common surname Smith, Priestley seems to be suggesting that in Eva Smith we see a woman who symbolises all women. Inspector Gould suggests as much when in his final speech he explains there are millions and millions and millions of Eva Smiths. The name choice makes it clear that Priestley does not want his audience to feel sorry for one working class woman. Instead, he wants us to consider Eva Smith as representing all working class women. Her name is used to provide an important lesson on how to treat those who suffer the effects of inequality in society. The second name Eva Smith adopts is Daisy Renton, and this name is also interesting in terms of Priestley's use of symbolism. A daisy is a common flower, cheap and pretty, and in this way could be seen as symbolic of Eva Smith. She's repeatedly described as pretty, but is obviously one of many working class women. It's quite shocking just how often Eva Smith is described in terms of her physical appearance. Therefore, the name Daisy, with its connotations of prettiness, seems quite appropriate as a symbol of how this young woman was judged largely on her physical appearance. The surname Renton could have different interpretations. On the one hand, the verb rent means to pay for using something for a period of time. As Daisy Renton, Eva rents her body when she enters a life of prostitution. Alternatively, the noun rent is a large tear in a piece of fabric, and this might symbolise that at this point in Eva's life, her spirit has been broken. She's left respectable society and is now trying to exist in the underworld of crime. In both name choices, Priestley therefore uses symbolism. Priestley uses description of Eva's appearance by others to show how women were objectified in Edwardian England. Firstly, Mr. Burling describes Eva Smith as a lively, good-looking girl. Sheila states that Eva was a very pretty girl too, with big dark eyes. Gerald's words echo those of Sheila, as he describes Eva as being very pretty, soft brown hair and big dark eyes. Even Inspector Gould says she had been pretty, very pretty. These descriptions all focus on Eva's physical appearance and beauty, and they highlight the way in which women were objectified. They were regarded as sources of pleasure for men rather than as equals. The character of Eva is also used to draw the attention of the audience to a clear double standard for men and women at the time. It is worth at this point pausing to think about the trouble Eva Smith was in. She was pregnant outside of marriage and had no means of providing for herself financially. Eva lied to the charity committee, saying she was married because admitting to having had sex outside of marriage would have made her unlikely to receive help from the charity. However, the same high moral standards were not expected of men. At the start of Act 3, when it's revealed that Eric slept with Eva, impregnated her, and stole money from his father's business, it's the stolen money that features most heavily in the parental reprimand from Mr. Burling. In fact, Eric excuses the sexual relationship by telling his father, "Well, I'm old enough to be married, aren't I?" Burling himself earlier admits that he and his peers in their younger years also broke out and had a bit of fun sometimes. Gerald, too, excuses his affair, explaining that, "I suppose it was inevitable. She was young and pretty." As so often happens in this play, the inspector sums it up perfectly when he explains how Eric treated Eva as if she was an animal, a thing, not a person. This quotation summarises the way in which women were objectified by men as sources of pleasure, not equals. Eva, on the other hand, is a hard worker and has strong moral values which see her refuse to accept stolen money. Yet Eva is the one who feels forced to commit suicide, whereas the men of the play seem to have, up until now, suffered no ill consequences for their actions. These double standards can be seen as relating to gender or class, and the message is clear. Women and the working class cannot get away with the poor behaviour and actions that men and the middle and upper classes can. Finally, Priestley uses the character of Eva to convey his message about social responsibility, when, in the inspector's exit speech, he states, "One Eva Smith has gone, but there are millions and millions and millions of Eva Smiths and John Smiths still left with us." Priestley's use of repetition and the rule of 3 with the word millions develops rhythm and momentum, building up to his point about the quantity of vulnerable poor still living. It's at this point that the inspector states that it's not just women who are vulnerable, but also working class men. The name John is a very common name, like the surname Smith. Women, however, are more open to exploitation by men like Eric and Gerald, and Priestley now positions the inspector to be the champion of all the poor in society, regardless of gender. Everything I go through in this video series can be found in the second, updated edition of Mr. Bruff's Guide to an Inspector Calls, and you can pick up a copy through following the links in the description. If you found this video useful, please do give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel.